I remember what it was like when I first bought a gun, and there was quite a few questions I had, and I felt uncomfortable in a lot of ways. And that's why I've come up with this list of 7 helpful tips for beginner gun owners. How's it going, guys, and welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk. My name is Chad, and this is the Hopeful Homestead. And in these series of videos, I like to sit here in my little tiny cabin on wheels, parked out on my family's property here, and talk to all the husbands and dads out there about all the difficult things in life as we're just trying to make it. And I know as a dad and as a husband, when I first started carrying guns, I had several questions and I had a lot of things I was unsure about with trying to figure out exactly the proper way to do it, how to get comfortable with my firearm, all the different things that cause you to have lack of confidence. And so if you didn't grow up with guns and didn't grow up with firearms, but you're now starting to carry, you're not alone. I was in the same boat, and I've been carrying for a few years now, and I've put together this little list that hopefully will help you build some confidence and help you be able to do it properly as well. Now, first on the list, if you're a husband or a dad, you have kids obviously, and you need to have safe gun storage. Before you buy that gun, you should already have purchased some sort of gun safe or at least a lockbox that has quick access. Depending on the type of gun you bought, obviously, if you bought a pistol, then you need a lockbox that you can honestly keep on your nightstand so that you can be able to have access to that gun in the middle of the night, but still keeps it locked and safe so that your kids can't get to it and do anything wrong with it. And the next thing on the list that really helped me build confidence after I got a gun, because if you didn't grow up with them like I didn't, there's a stigma around it. You start handling that gun and you feel like, almost feel afraid of it, which is ridiculous because it's just a tool. But you have to get rid of the stigma, get rid of that subconscious fear of the firearm. Practice the process of loading and unloading the gun so that you know exactly how your firearm properly loads and unloads ammunition. And then when it's unloaded, not when it's loaded, practice rolling through the action. And if you don't know what I mean by rolling through the action, like on this .22 revolver, figure out how that feels, how the tension of that hammer pull feels. And then obviously learning how to, all of the mechanisms for how to load and everything that goes into the gun you purchase. That's obviously all the procedures that I use for this particular revolver, but other revolvers have a cylinder that'll swing out and you can load and unload more easily than a single action. And obviously if you have a slide pistol, which probably most of you would be, your first gun purchase is going to be some sort of budget-friendly slide semi-auto pistol that's modern. Practice loading and unloading the magazine for one, learn how that feels, and practice inserting the magazine. Practice with the magazine out of it, racking the slides to just get a feel for the tension of that, and then practice putting the magazine in, racking around into the chamber, and then taking the magazine out and racking the slide again to be able to get that live round out of the chamber. That's important with a slide action pistol, to be able to make sure you know exactly how to load and unload that gun properly without accidentally shooting it when you don't want to. And now next on the list is deciding how you want to carry your gun in public. I just made a whole video about this, go check that out, about deciding how you actually carry your firearm, whether it's concealed or open carry, in the waistband or in your pocket or out of the waistband or in a chest holster, whatever. There's many, many ways to carry a firearm that all have benefits and drawbacks for how they are deployed and also for which situation they're being used for. But whichever way you decide to carry that you feel the most comfortable with, make sure that you practice putting that firearm into that method of carry and pulling it and drawing from that. Obviously, don't have your gun loaded when you're practicing this. Like for me, when I'm going out into public, I pocket carry a snub-nose revolver. And so I practiced for a long time drawing it from that pocket so I know exactly how the direction to pull so that a hammer won't snag on the edge of my pocket. Things like that you have to think about and practice the mechanics of and get muscle memory built so that in a stressful situation, you're not making a mistake that could be costly to your family's lives. And number 4 on the list is deciding which caliber you're going to carry. For what type of gun you want, obviously the type of gun, whether it's a revolver or a semi-auto gun or whatever, you then need to decide what caliber you want to be dealing with here. How much recoil you're willing to accept and how confident you can feel taking that first shot and then reacquiring your sight radius and taking a follow-up shot. All that has to do with the caliber and the amount of recoil, the amount of loudness, honestly, that you're dealing with. Like for me, when I'm carrying it on my property here, I open carry big 45 Colt revolver and lever guns when I'm out here on my property for wildlife protection, and I choose 45 Colt because it's honestly not that loud. Any gun is still loud, but I can deploy my revolver and especially my lever gun, but even the revolver, which is louder than the long gun, I can shoot 45 Colt and it doesn't leave me feeling deaf for 3 days after firing it without hearing protection on. Because obviously when I'm out here doing work on my property, I'm not wearing hearing protection the whole time. So thinking about that, I'm a big proponent of taking your gun somewhere where you're able to legally fire it without hearing protection 1 or 2 times, so you become aware of what that feels like and sounds like based on the caliber you choose. Because if you've never done that and then you have to deploy your gun in a situation where you're actually having to defend your family and you haven't experienced what it sounds like to actually use without hearing protection, it's going to stun you. Especially if it's something like a 9mm in a short barrel semi-auto pistol. That is stinking loud. And if you're doing 357 Magnum or something, oh man, it might stun you to the point where you can't take a follow-up shot. Number 5 on the list is trigger discipline. And what I mean by trigger discipline is get into the habit with the gun that you have of carrying it like this, finger out of the trigger guard on the side of the firearm, so that you're able to make sure that you're ready in a position where you can put it in and fire it real quick if you need to, but for the most part, your finger's not even going to accidentally set the gun off, especially when you're at the range practicing shooting. Unless your gun is pointed downrange at the target, finger is off the trigger until you're ready to fire, and then pull the trigger when you're ready to fire. And then as soon as you're done firing and you go to put your gun down or put it back in your holster, many beginners will leave their finger in the trigger guard and do that. That is a big mistake. Take that finger out of the trigger guard and then put your gun back in your holster. That's what I mean by trigger discipline. And another thing, especially when you're at the range, or if you're carrying, like for me, when I'm out at my family's campsite here, where we've got a fire pit, and I'm carrying guns with me late at night when we're having a fire, I carry guns with me out here to be able to protect us from wildlife. And I'm always worried about flagging. Whether you're out at the range, practicing some shooting your guns, or if you're carrying your guns openly in a scenario where they're not holstered necessarily all the time, you got to make sure that you practice not flagging. Flagging is when the barrel is pointed in the direction of a person. You never want that to happen. Carrying a firearm, you should either have it pointed upright like this at all time, finger off the trigger, pointed up at the sky, where even if somehow it went off, I mean it's not, but somehow you're being responsible, the gun is not pointed at anybody when you're carrying it like this. I carry revolvers and lever guns like this a lot when I'm moving around and they're not in a holster, because it's a safe method of doing it. But if you're at the shooting range, or if you're in a situation where you're actually having to defend your family, carrying that firearm pointed down at the ground, arms down, pointed at the ground, not at your own feet, but at the ground about 3 feet in front of you, is a good ready position, whether it's a rifle or a pistol. 2 hands on the gun, pointed about 3 feet in front of you at the ground as you're walking around, identifying your threat, and then raise the firearm up to your sight radius, looking down the barrel to be able to make your shot. And then as soon as you make a shot, you're bringing that gun back down to a safe position that is not flagging anybody. That's what flagging is. You don't want to be walking around at the range, or even in a stressful situation where you're actually defending your family, accidentally pointing a loaded gun with a live round under the hammer or in the chamber on a slide semi-auto gun. You don't want to be pointing that barrel at anybody at any time. So make sure you have good discipline with flagging. And that brings me to the last item on the list, number 7, and that is to practice with your firearm regularly. Like I mentioned before, as your family's protector, you need to be proficient in the use of your firearm and the method you choose to be able to protect your family. And so what I mean by practicing isn't necessarily just at the range. Yes, you need to go to the range, practice putting rounds down range on target at various distances. Practice at home with your gun unloaded. Practice clearing your house. Practice waking up from bed and laying there, waking up and having to get the gun out of the lockbox next to you, or running into your closet to get your rifle out of the gun safe. And then practice the mechanics of exiting your bedroom, working your way through the house. Identify points in your house when you come around doorways and around corners into hallways. Practice knowing the layout of your home, of where you will need to make that turn, come around the corner, and know the corners of the room you need to check with your firearm drawn and pointed, and knowing exactly how you will deploy your firearm in a home defense scenario. Alrighty, that's going to do it for today's video. Again, this is the Hopeful Homestead. My name is Chad, and I appreciate you being here. And if you feel like sticking around, there's a video up here talking about why exactly you need to carry a firearm every day as a husband and a father. Let me know if I left anything out. If you have any more tips for beginners out there that would be helpful, let me know in the comments so they can read them. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Thanks.